Have you ever reached a moment in life where you pause and realize you're standing at a crossroads? One path feels safe, comfortable, familiar, lined with relationships you've known for years. These are the people you've shared countless laughs with, the ones who saw your tears, who were there for birthdays, breakups, late-night conversations, and shared memories that seem unshakable. But deep inside, another part of you whispers a harder truth. This bond is no longer helping me grow. It's unsettling, isn't it? Almost like waking up one day and finding that the very walls that once protected you now feel like a cage. Sometimes, the people closest to us, the ones who should have been our greatest cheerleaders, the very ones who keep us stuck, repeating the same patterns, discouraging our growth, or even pulling us down. And that realization stings. It forces you to ask, what if not everyone who starts with me is meant to finish with me? This is not easy to accept. It's one of the hardest pills to swallow in life. Family, friends, even partners, we're taught to believe these ties must be permanent, that loyalty means holding on forever. But the wisdom of the Stoics invites us to challenge this belief. The Stoics, with their razor-sharp insights into human nature and the pursuit of a meaningful life, remind us that real growth sometimes requires pruning. Just as a gardener trims away branches that choke the tree, we too must carefully examine who we allow to grow beside us. And here's the crucial point. Letting go isn't about cold indifference. It's not about cutting people off out of anger or resentment. It's about curating our inner circle with intention, choosing with wisdom and courage to walk beside those who uplift, who inspire, who challenge us to rise into the best version of ourselves. Ask yourself, are my closest connections helping me become stronger? Or are they quietly anchoring me to a smaller life? If you feel the weight of this question right now, you're not alone. Many of us reach that same crossroads, torn between comfort and growth. That's why today, we turn to Stoic wisdom to explore not just the if, but the when. When is it time to release a bond, even with love and gratitude, to make space for deeper connections, fresh opportunities, and a life aligned with your highest virtues? Stay with me as we walk through this together. Every insight, every reflection could be the one that transforms how you view relationships forever. Don't skip ahead. Don't rush to the end. Let each idea sink in, because the truth is freedom is found in awareness. And awareness begins right here, now. Let's face a red flag together. If a relationship stops you from growing, if it quietly holds you back when you should be moving forward, that is a warning sign you cannot afford to ignore. Think about it. Have you ever felt stuck, like you're treading water, while others pass you by because someone close to you isn't cheering for you? Or worse, they're subtly undermining you. It's a painful place to be, isn't it? Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, taught that life worth living is a life of constant evolution, learning, expanding, testing our boundaries. To remain stagnant is to betray our potential. So if you're in a friendship, a family bond, or even a romantic relationship where you feel your growth has been stifled, what would Seneca say? He would probably lean in and whisper, "That is a red flag you must not ignore. Now, don't misunderstand me. Not every relationship needs to push you to extremes or set you on a path of record-breaking achievement. But the people who truly care for you should want to see you flourish. They should be your supporters, your safe place, your anchor, only in storms, the heavy weight that drags you deeper into what if and if only. It's worth pausing and asking yourself hard but necessary questions. Why am I still holding on? Is it love, habit, fear of being alone? Loyalty to a past that no longer fits my future? These are not easy reflections, but they are vital ones. Because true connections, the ones worth keeping, should never shrink you. They should expand you. They should make you feel capable of becoming more today than you were yesterday. Stoicism teaches us to be mindful of our circle. It's not about collecting endless friends or chasing approval or being liked by everyone. It's about choosing wisely. Building a circle of influence that enriches your days, encourages your progress, and aligns with your deepest values. So if you find yourself in a bond that feels less like a launching pad and more like quicksand, maybe it's time to reconsider. Remember, seeking growth is not selfish. It's human. It's necessary. And sometimes growth requires letting go, not with bitterness, but with gratitude. Gratitude for the memories shared, for the lessons learned, for the strength gained. Gratitude even for the pain, because it showed you where you must draw the line. Reflect on your relationships. Look around your life. Ask yourself honestly, are these people pushing me upward or pulling me back into the shadows of my own potential? The answers you find might be uncomfortable, but they could also be the keys to your freedom. We ended the last part by asking ourselves a hard question. Are our relationships lifting us higher or quietly pulling us down? That question becomes even more urgent when emotions come into play. Because, let's be honest, self-improvement is never a journey we walk alone. The companions we choose matter. They shape the quality of our days, the strength of our hearts, and the direction of our growth. And yet, many of us have experienced the other side, being caught in a whirlwind of negativity inside a relationship. Have you ever noticed when drama feels like the main course of a friendship, while genuine support doesn't even make it onto the menu? It's draining, isn't it? Exhausting to the core. The Stoic Emperor Marcus Aurelius offered a powerful reminder here. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Think about that for a moment. It shifts everything. When you apply this truth to relationships poisoned by jealousy, constant anger, or recurring resentment, it becomes a game changer. If a relationship begins to feel more like a battlefield than a safe harbor, that's not a small sign, it's a loud signal. Something has to change, because negative emotions are a natural part of life, yes, but they are never meant to be the foundation of a relationship that claims to bring peace. Of course, this doesn't mean we should expect to live without ever feeling jealousy, anger, or frustration. That would be as impossible as trying to breathe without air. What Marcus Aurelius teaches us is that while emotions may arise, it is our reactions that define us. We sit in the driver's seat. We decide whether these emotions steer the course of our connections or fade like passing clouds. Maybe jealousy shows up when a friend succeeds, while you feel stuck. Maybe anger rises each time a loved one belittles or undermines you. These feelings are real, but here's the point. You still have a choice. You can refuse to let jealousy and anger dictate the terms of your relationship. So what does this look like in practice? It begins with awareness, with pausing in the heat of the moment and asking yourself, why am I feeling this? What is this emotion trying to teach me? How can I respond in a way that reflects the person I want to become? These are not easy questions, but they are essential. Sometimes the healthiest response is not to fight harder, but to step back, to create distance, to acknowledge that if the core of a bond is about pulling each other into spirals of negativity, instead of lifting one another up, it may be time to reassess. That doesn't mean you failed. It doesn't mean the other person is the villain of your story. It simply means that not every relationship is built to last through every season of our lives. And that's okay. The Stoics believed deeply in living according to nature. And sometimes the natural course of life is to grow apart. Just as trees shed their leaves in autumn, relationships, too, have seasons. To accept this truth is not weakness. It is wisdom. So if you find yourself constantly weighed down by jealousy, anger, or resentment within a relationship, pause. Reflect. Remember Marcus Aurelius's wisdom. You have power over your mind. And in that power lies the freedom to decide whether a bond deserves space in your life or whether it's time to let it go. In the last part, we reflected on Marcus Aurelius's reminder that our true power lies in how we respond to emotions. Now, let's take that understanding one step further and talk about something just as critical: the kind of environment we choose to build around ourselves. Because your reactions, your choices, and ultimately the relationships you allow into your life, these shape the foundation of your well-being. When those connections are rooted in positive, supportive energy, that's where we truly thrive. That's where growth happens. That's where peace can be found. But if drama becomes the defining trait of your relationships, something is wrong. We cannot let constant conflict, jealousy, or negativity dictate the quality of our closest bonds. Instead, we must seek and cultivate connections grounded in mutual respect, understanding, and genuine support. Because, at the end of the day, those are the relationships that endure the test of time. They are the ones that bring out the best in us. And now, we must face another tricky but crucial subject: manipulation and control. In any type of relationship, whether it's family, friendship, or romantic, you start to feel more like a puppet than a partner. That is a massive red flag. Autonomy and freedom are not luxuries. They are essentials. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "No one is free who is not master of himself." Think about that for a moment. Real freedom doesn't come from the outside. It comes from within, through mastery of our actions, our decisions, and ultimately, our lives. So what does that mean when you find yourself in a relationship where you're not the one calling the shots? When your decisions, your desires, even your thoughts seem constantly overshadowed by someone else's control? It means something is deeply out of balance. Manipulation can be subtle. Sometimes it's cloaked in suggestions that slowly steer you away from your passions. Other times, it's much more obvious outright demands dictating who you should be, what you should do, or how you should think. But however it shows up, the truth remains the same. These are not the hallmarks of a healthy relationship. True connections, those worthy of your heart and emotional investment, are built on respect and freedom. They are spaces where individuality is honored, not stifled. Stoicism teaches us the importance of autonomy, of being, in Epictetus's words, the master of your own ship. So, if you find yourself constantly second-guessing your choices, if you feel like your wings have been clipped, you need to pause and ask, why am I still in a dynamic that cages me? Why am I surrendering my freedom when my life is meant to be my own? Cutting ties with someone who manipulates or controls you is not about being cruel. It's about honoring your worth. It's about respecting your autonomy and reclaiming your right to live a life that belongs to you. It's about taking Epictetus's wisdom to heart and remembering that freedom means making your own choices, following your own values, and authoring your own story. Yes, making that choice can be incredibly hard. It might mean letting go of something familiar or even someone you still care for deeply. But Stoicism has never been about choosing the easy path. It has always been about choosing the right path. And sometimes, the right path is the one that leads you away from harm and closer to a more authentic, fulfilling life. Because the truth is this: real relationships, the ones that enrich your life, will never try to mold you into something you're not. They will never try to clip your wings or hold your strings. Instead, they will encourage you to explore, to question, to grow. They will give you the freedom to be wholly, authentically yourself. So, if you feel like someone is pulling your strings, stop and reflect on Epictetus's words. No one is free who is not master of himself. Ask yourself, is it time to cut those strings? Is it time to step into the freedom of being the author of your own life? This is a journey worth taking, a journey toward living in control of your choices, surrounded by relationships that uplift you and respect your autonomy. At the end of the day, that is what true friendship and love should do. They should set you free, never hold you back. In the last section, we reflected on Epictetus's wisdom about autonomy and freedom, how true relationships should never control or manipulate us. Now, let's look at another red flag that reveals itself in a very different way: the constant feeling of unease. It's like walking on eggshells every single day, never knowing what small word or action might spark another argument. Or maybe it's not an argument at all, just that heavy feeling that creeps in whenever this person is around. Either way, these are not small hints. They're glaring signals that something is deeply off. Because, let's be honest, healthy relationships, the kind we all deserve, are not supposed to make us feel like this. They're meant to bring joy, not dread. They should enrich our lives, not complicate them with endless tension. Real connections are meant to support us through life's ups and downs, not leave us drained, questioning our own worth or feeling like we're never enough. The Stoics spoke often about living in harmony with nature, our outer nature and our inner nature. That harmony included choosing relationships that reflect virtue, peace, and tranquility. They believed strongly in nurturing bonds that align with our higher values, because those are the ones that help us live a flourishing life. So if you find yourself pulled away from peace, constantly unsettled, or drifting further from the best version of yourself, the Stoics would urge you to pause. They would ask you to step back and examine things clearly, almost like an observer. Is this relationship truly contributing to your well-being? Is it helping you grow? Or is it a source of constant negativity, draining your energy day after day, leaving you weaker instead of stronger? If the answer leans toward the latter, then it's worth asking, why am I still holding on? Stoicism teaches the value of self-awareness and, even more importantly, the courage to make difficult choices that protect our well-being and virtue. It's not about being cold, cruel, or unfeeling. It's about recognizing what is truly beneficial for you in the long run. And sometimes, that recognition means making the painful decision to distance yourself from those who do more harm than good. Of course, this doesn't mean that every rough patch equals a toxic relationship. Challenges exist in all connections. But at their core, healthy bonds are still supportive. They carry love, mutual respect, and the intention to grow together. That's what makes them worth fighting for. But if you notice that being around someone consistently makes you feel worse, if the joy is gone and stress has become the norm, then it's a sign. A sign that something needs to shift. Sometimes, that shift is communication, an honest, open conversation where you share how you feel and what needs to change. Communication is key, and without it, no bond can truly heal. And yet, if nothing changes, you must remember this: it's okay to prioritize your peace. It's okay to put your well-being first. The Stoics would remind us that our responsibility begins with ourselves. That includes seeking out healthy relationships and letting go of unhealthy ones. So let's make a commitment to cultivate relationships that feel good, that truly add something meaningful to our lives, instead of complicating them with unnecessary pain. Because at the end of the day, every one of us deserves connections that bring joy, growth, and tranquility. And here's the truth: facing these challenges, making these hard decisions, that's how we grow stronger. That's how we align with who we really are. That is the Stoic way to embrace what serves us and to let go of what does not. Which brings us to yet another deal breaker: the absence of respect. Because without mutual respect, what foundation do we really have? Without respect, love turns fragile. Without respect, support becomes hollow. It's like trying to build a house on sand eventually. No matter how beautiful it looks on the outside, everything collapses. The Stoics, who valued virtue above all, placed immense importance on respect, especially self-respect. And that is where we will turn our attention next. In the last section, we spoke about respect and how, without it, every relationship eventually crumbles, just like a house built on sand. Let's now carry that idea further, because respect is not just a courtesy. It's a reflection of our deepest values. The Stoics believed that every individual carries an inherent worth and dignity. This truth, they argued, should always be mirrored in how we treat one another. So if you find yourself in a relationship where your dignity is dismissed, where your worth is diminished, that is more than a red flag. It's a clear warning. It's not simply about feeling undervalued. It's about recognizing that something fundamental, something essential to your humanity, is being disregarded. Mutual respect is not optional. It is the bedrock of every healthy connection upon which trust, love, and true understanding are built. Strip that away, and what's left? A hollow bond. A connection that feels empty, unfulfilling, and ultimately not worth the time or emotional energy you pour into it. Now, some of you might already be asking, but what if it's not that simple? What if I genuinely care about this person? And that is a fair question. Relationships are rarely simple. Emotions are powerful, and they can blur the lines between what we wish for and what truly is. But here is where Stoicism offers clarity. The Stoics taught us to strip away illusions, to see things as they are, not as we want them to be. They urged us to assess our relationships through the lens of virtue and truth. Ask yourself, am I being true to myself by staying in a situation where I am not respected? Am I honoring my worth and the values I claim to live by? If the answer is no, then it is time for serious reflection. And reflection doesn't always mean cutting someone out with cold precision. Often, it begins with recognizing your value and making choices that reflect it. It might mean setting clearer boundaries or having an honest, heartfelt conversation about how you feel. In some cases, it may also mean acknowledging with courage that it's time to move on. Remember, respecting yourself and demanding that respect from others is not selfish. It is not unreasonable, okay? It is a sign of self-worth, something that Stoics insisted each of us must cultivate. It is about ensuring that our relationships mirror the same respect and virtue we strive to embody in our own lives. So, if you find yourself struggling with a lack of mutual respect, pause, reflect, ask yourself what that really means for your well-being. Consider what steps you can take to address it in a way that honors both your dignity and your values. Because, at the end of the day, every one of us deserves to be in relationships where respect is mutual, where each person is valued and appreciated for who they are. That is the kind of relationship that not only survives, but thrives, reflecting the very best of what it means to live in alignment with Stoic wisdom. And here lies another truth. Sometimes, the greatest trap we face is not cruelty or conflict, but illusion. The feeling of being tethered to what we wish was real, rather than facing what actually is at its heart. Stoicism is about acceptance. Acceptance of reality, our lives, our relationships, the world around us, not as we would like them to be, but as they truly are. There is a deep strength and even a kind of freedom in seeing clearly. Because illusions, as comforting as they seem, are like rose-colored glass. They distort, they hide the cracks, and in doing so, they prevent us from making choices that honor truth. So, when it comes to our relationships, what does this mean? It means daring to take an honest, unflinching look Are these bonds rooted in reality? Or are we clinging to a fantasy? Are we ignoring the red flags, glossing over the problems because it's easier than facing the truth? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary ones. In the previous section, we talked about illusions, how clinging to what we wish was true can blind us to the reality of our relationships. Now, let's look even closer at how those illusions play out. Sometimes, we create a version of someone in our minds that doesn't quite match who they really are. Other times, we hold on to a picture-perfect story that crumbles when you look closely. And here's the truth. When we stay tied to illusions, we're not doing ourselves, or our partners, any favors. It's like being stuck in a mirage. From a distance, everything looks beautiful, almost flawless. But as you walk closer, you realize it's nothing but a shimmering image without substance, without truth. The disappointment cuts deep, doesn't it? Because what you thought was water turns out to be sand. Now, let's be clear. Hope and aspirations do have a place in relationships. Of course they do. Without them, there's no vision for growth, no shared dreams to reach for. But there is a fine line. A line between healthy aspirations that inspire us and dangerous fantasies that keep us trapped, blind to the reality in front of us. When we lose ourselves in those fantasies, we stop engaging with the true nature of our connection. The Stoics would never advise us to live in denial. Quite the opposite, they challenge us to confront illusions head on, to have the courage to recognize and accept reality, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it hurts. This level of honesty is not easy. It requires vulnerability. It demands clarity. But in that clarity lies power, because truth is the only foundation strong enough to build a meaningful, lasting relationship. Illusions may comfort us for a while, but truth is what sustains us in the long run. And yes, embracing reality over illusion can be transformative, but also painful. It might mean admitting that a relationship is not what you imagined it to be, or that the person you're with isn't who you hoped they would become. That realization can feel like swallowing a bitter pill, but it is also the very step that opens the door to growth, to emotional freedom. When you finally release the fantasy, you create space for something real. Space to love and be loved for who you truly are, not for some story you've constructed in your mind. That kind of authenticity is what allows relationships to flourish. So ask yourself, which parts of my relationship are real? Which parts have I exaggerated or imagined? And more importantly, how does this alignment or lack of it with reality affect my happiness and my well-being? Remember, Stoicism is not about pessimism. It's not about giving up on love or resigning yourself to unhappiness. It's about the opposite, finding peace and contentment through truth. By accepting reality as it is, we free ourselves from illusions that only bring confusion and disappointment. Stoicism teaches us that clarity brings wisdom, and wisdom leads to strength. Let's challenge ourselves to look at every connection through this lens of Stoic acceptance. Let's dare to embrace the truth, however difficult it might be. Fulfilling relationships, the kind that truly enrich our lives. After all, it is in the clarity of truth that we discover the path to real happiness, and yes, to real love. And now, let's turn to another test of any relationship: values. Compromising your values should never be an option. Values are your compass. They guide your choices, direct your actions, and shape the course of your life. So here's a question that may cut closer to the bone than weed. Like, what happens when a relationship challenges those very values? When it asks you to compromise what you hold most dear? It's a tough situation, but one we cannot ignore. And as always, Stoicism offers guidance. The Stoics would argue that compromising your core values for the sake of any relationship is a price far too high to pay. Why? Because our values are not just ideas we talk about. They are the essence of who we are. They shape our identity, our character, our very way of living. In the last section, we spoke about the danger of compromising your values. How? Betraying your principles for the sake of a relationship slowly erodes who you are at your core. Now, let's explore why holding firm to those values is so essential. And what happens when we single quotes, our values influence everything. The choices we make, the actions we take, and the way we interact with the world. To compromise them is to give away a part of ourselves. And that kind of loss is one no relationship is worth. Imagine being in a relationship that constantly asks you to act in ways that contradict your beliefs. Maybe it starts small, tiny concessions here and there, but over time, those compromises add up. They chip away at your identity, your confidence, and the principles you live by. This isn't about the healthy sacrifices we all make in love or friendship. Every strong bond requires flexibility, patience, and compromise in small ways. But what we're talking about here is different. This is about betraying the very essence of who you are. The Stoics made this point clear. Integrity and virtue, they said, are not lofty ideals reserved for philosophers. They are practical guides for living a good life. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, every one of them emphasized the importance of staying true to yourself. Living in alignment with your values, no matter the external pressure, is what gives your life direction, meaning, and purpose. So if you find yourself in a relationship that demands you compromise your values, pause, reflect, ask yourself, is this relationship truly serving my highest good? Does it allow me to grow and thrive? Or does it hold me back and push me to be someone I am not? These are not easy questions, especially when emotions run deep. But this is where Stoic practice becomes a powerful ally. Through self-reflection and rational analysis, you can step back and see clearly. You can assess not through fear or guilt, but through the lens of your values. And when you do, you give yourself permission to make decisions that honor the person you strive to be. And here's something crucial to remember. Walking away from a relationship that compromises your values is not failure. It is strength. It is a courageous act of self-respect. It is a declaration that your life, your integrity, and your worth matter. That you deserve relationships that lift you up, respect you, and align with who you are at your core. Let's challenge ourselves to live with the same integrity and virtue the Stoics. Let's make sure our relationships reflect those values, not undermine them. Because at the end of the day, it is our values that define us. They are the compass that guides us through life's storms, the anchor that holds us steady, and the light that points us toward true fulfillment. So keep your values close. Protect them fiercely. Never compromise them for anyone or anything. In doing so, you not only honor the wisdom of the Stoics, but you also open the path to relationships that are genuine. The next sign we must consider: reciprocity. Because relationships are not just about respect or values. They are also about balance. When we talk about reciprocity, we're talking about the balance of give and take, the mutual support that keeps a relationship alive. But what happens when that balance is broken? What happens when you find yourself constantly giving, but rarely ever receiving? It's a situation many of us know too well, and it is far from ideal. Reciprocity is not just a luxury. It is essential. Without it, no relationship can remain healthy for long. Think about it. When one person gives endlessly and the other only takes, the bond becomes fundamentally unbalanced. The giver eventually feels exhausted, unappreciated, and resentful. Meanwhile, the receiver risks falling into dependency or entitlement. And when that imbalance sets in, it undermines the very essence of what a healthy relationship should be. We just talked about the weight of imbalance in a relationship. When one person keeps giving while the other only takes. Now, let's go deeper into how the Stoics viewed the true nature of human connections and the essential role of mutual support. The Stoics often emphasize that a meaningful relationship must be built on harmony and respect. They believed in the value of contributing to the well-being of others, but never at the cost of one's own dignity or inner peace. For them, the ideal bond was not one of sacrifice, but of reciprocity, two individuals walking side by side, supporting each other in the pursuit of virtue and a good life. So, if you ever find yourself stuck in a one-sided relationship, the first step is to pause and reflect. Are you respecting yourself by allowing this imbalance to continue? Are you truly respecting the other person if, by enabling this dynamic, you prevent them from growing, from learning how to contribute? Addressing imbalance doesn't necessarily mean ending the relationship. Instead, it can open the door to growth for both people. It begins with honest communication, expressing your needs, setting healthy boundaries, and discussing ways to restore balance. And remember, this isn't just about material support. True balance includes emotional presence, spiritual encouragement, and the willingness to stand by each other when it matters most. Because healthy relationships are never static. They shift, evolve, and demand effort. They require compromise and flexibility, but above all, they must rest on a foundation of mutual respect and reciprocity. Only when both people feel valued, heard, and supported can trust deepen and connection flourish. Seeking balance in your relationships is not selfish. It is necessary. It ensures that you are not only giving, but also receiving the love, respect, and support you deserve. That is how you build relationships that are not merely sustainable, but truly enriching for both parties. So, let us strive to create relationships where Reciprocity is the norm, not the rare exception. Because, in this give and take, we find the very essence of meaningful connection. And yet, there is a harsher truth we cannot ignore. Sometimes the issue goes far beyond imbalance and enters the territory of abuse. When that line is crossed, the Stoic answer is clear. It is time to leave. Abuse, whether physical, emotional, verbal, or psychological, is a direct, unmistakable signal that a relationship has become destructive. Stoicism, a philosophy grounded in dignity, self-respect, and the value of the human spirit, condemns abuse in every form. Such behavior does more than violate Stoic principles. It destroys the very foundations of trust and safety that all relationships require. The Stoics remind us that dignity and self-respect are not abstract ideals. They are practical guides meant to shape our choices, especially when we face adversity. If these principles are being trampled on, Stoicism urges us to act not from anger or revenge, but out of respect for ourselves and the innate value of our well-being. Abuse diminishes, controls, and instills fear. And in every way, it stands in absolute opposition to what Stoicism teaches. We just reflected on the painful reality of abuse and the Stoic wisdom that calls us to act with courage, seeking help, finding support, and stepping away from harm. Now, let us look more closely at why this response is not only recommended, but necessary. The Stoic perspective is clear. In the face of abuse, the only virtuous path is to seek help and leave the relationship. This is not just important, it is essential. Such a decision aligns with Stoicism's commitment to living a dignified life, one rooted in virtue and in the respect for the inherent worth of every human being, starting with oneself. Of course, leaving an abusive relationship is among the hardest decisions anyone may ever face. It requires immense courage, inner strength, and often the steady support of others. This is where the Stoic practice of learning from those who have walked the same path becomes invaluable. Whether guidance comes from friends, family, or professional services, seeking help is never a sign of weakness. On the contrary, it's a declaration of strength. It is a way of affirming your worth and a commitment to living free from harm. But Stoicism does not stop at the call to exit abusive situations. It also emphasizes the long journey of healing, of reclaiming dignity and self-respect after such experiences. While we cannot control the actions of others, we do retain complete control over how we respond to those actions and how we move forward with our lives. Healing, then, becomes a deeply Stoic journey, one of reasserting control over our inner world, reaffirming our values, and rebuilding a life aligned with them. And let us be absolutely clear. If you are experiencing abuse, it is not your fault. You are not alone. Reaching out for help, leaning on the strength of those who care for you, and taking steps to leave such a situation are all acts of profound self-respect. They represent a decisive choice to honor your dignity, to guard your well-being, and to live a life that reflects the principles Stoicism so strongly upholds. In this spirit, we must remember, valuing ourselves, respecting our worth, and taking action to remove ourselves from harm are not only Stoic duties, they are the very foundation of living with virtue. To stand firm in the pursuit of dignity and self-respect is to live a life rich not only in freedom from abuse, but in meaning. And yet, abuse is not the only danger to a relationship. There are other warning signs, less visible, but equally destructive. One of these is failed communication, when words no longer bridge the distance between two people, when attempts to talk lead nowhere, when common ground feels unreachable and mutual understanding becomes a distant dream. This is not just a small bump in the road. It is a red flag. It signals that something much deeper is broken, something that must be addressed before the relationship can survive. The Stoics remind us that communication is the lifeblood of any thriving bond. It is through communication that we express our needs, share our thoughts, and connect on a level that gives meaning to the relationship itself. Without it, we are left navigating in the dark, making assumptions about what the other person feels or thinks and, more often than not, getting it wrong. The Stoics themselves practiced and taught the value of clear, honest communication. They emphasized listening with patience, understanding with empathy, and responding with reason. Marcus Aurelius, in particular, often wrote about the importance of using logic and clarity to face life's challenges. So, when communication breaks down, what should we do? First, we must recognize that failed communication is rarely the problem. Its self-fit is a symptom. The root cause might be distrust, unresolved resentment, or even a simple clash of communication styles. Whatever it is, Stoicism urges us to approach it with a calm mind and an open heart. It calls us to examine our own role in the breakdown, to seek clarity, and to return to honesty in our interactions. We just explored how failed communication can reveal deeper fractures within a relationship. Now, let's take the next step, how the Stoics would advise us to respond. Marcus Aurelius, for instance, would likely suggest applying the same timeless tools of reason and reflection to communication struggles. That means taking a deliberate step back, stripping away as much emotional heat as possible, and examining the situation with a calm, objective mind. Ask yourself, where exactly is the communication breaking down? Why is it happening? What can realistically be done to improve it? Improving communication is never the work of one person alone. It demands commitment from everyone involved. It's about cultivating an environment where each voice feels heard, where each person is valued. It's not about simply waiting for your turn to reply. It's about listening deeply, trying earnestly to see the world through the other person's eyes at the same time. It's about expressing yourself with clarity and respect without hidden accusations, without assuming motives, and perhaps, above all, it's about patience, the willingness to keep trying, even when progress feels painfully slow. The Stoics also remind us not to forget empathy and compassion. Behind every sharp word or cold silence, there may be hidden wounds, securities, fears, defenses. What looks like hostility is often a shield. By approaching communication with empathy, we don't just resolve conflict, we open the door to understanding. And in that understanding, we rediscover connection. Failed communication, then, doesn't have to be the end of a relationship. In fact, it can be a turning point. It can become an opportunity for growth, a lesson in resilience, a chance to strengthen the very bond that once seemed fragile. Through the Stoic lens, every obstacle contains the seed of wisdom. We are willing to see it. So when you face these challenges, remember the Stoic triad: clarity, honesty, empathy. Let these be your guideposts. The goal is not simply to talk more, it is to communicate better. In the richness of true communication lies connection, and in connection lies understanding. That understanding is the very foundation upon which all meaningful relationships are built. But what happens when even that foundation feels unstable? Imagine this: a relationship that should bring you peace and comfort instead feels like a constant storm, disrupting your inner calm, unsettling your days and nights. It's exhausting, isn't it? When the bonds meant to enrich our lives begin to erode our tranquility. That's a warning sign. This is where Stoicism, again, speaks with timeless clarity. Peace of mind, the Stoics taught, is not a luxury, it is essential. It is one of the most precious assets we can protect, for without it, the good life is impossible. Their wisdom urges us to guard our inner calm, to strive for equanimity in all circumstances, including the relationships we choose to maintain. And so, when a relationship continually shakes that inner stillness, Stoicism advises us to pause, step back, and examine. Ask yourself, does this connection align with the tranquility I seek? Does it reflect the life of virtue and dignity I wish to live? As we reflected in the last section, every relationship that unsettles your inner peace deserves careful examination. Ask yourself, why does this bond disturb me? Is it the other person's repeated behavior, lingering conflicts that were never resolved? Or could it be my own expectations clashing with reality? This process of self-examination is vital. It shifts us from reacting emotionally in the heat of the moment to responding with clarity and rational thought. When we identify the true source of disturbance, we gain the power to see what can be changed and what must be accepted. The next step is honest evaluation. Can these issues be addressed through open and respectful dialogue? Do boundaries need to be set, perhaps reinforced more firmly? Stoicism does not ask us to passively endure every hardship. It teaches us to accept the unchangeable, yes, but also to act where our choices can create positive change. This balance between acceptance and action is what gives the Stoic path its strength. However, if after a thoughtful effort and genuine attempts at resolution, the relationship still remains a constant storm in your life, then the harder question arises: does this connection still belong in your journey? Recognizing misalignment between a relationship and your core values is not weakness, is wisdom. The decision to distance yourself is never easy. It requires courage, honesty, and sometimes the painful act of letting go. Not from hatred, but from love for your own well-being. Remember, Stoicism does not aim to erase all discomfort. Instead, it calls us to build resilience, to stand steady in the winds of life. But resilience is not the same as self-sacrifice. The relationships you nurture should become a source of strength, growth, and joy, not endless unrest. So if you find yourself constantly disturbed, treat it as a chance to practice Stoic wisdom. Reflect deeply, evaluate carefully, and choose the path that protects your peace of mind. Because in the end, the quality of our life is shaped by the quality of our relationships. Balance, honesty, and respect are not luxuries. They are the foundations of every bond worth keeping. And above all, true connection must enrich your soul, not rob you of your tranquility. As we close today, I invite you to carry these Stoic lessons forward. Let them be a quiet beacon, guiding you through both the struggles and the joys of human connection. Every step, every decision, every relationship is part of your journey toward wisdom, virtue, and a life lived with meaning. Thank you for walking through this journey with me today. Remember, the relationships you keep should nurture peace, not destroy it. Let Stoic wisdom be your guide. Reflect, set boundaries, and choose wisely. If this message resonates, don't forget to subscribe to Stoic Havenway. Together, we'll keep learning, growing, and moving toward lives filled with tranquility and meaning. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay strong, stay wise, and keep seeking peace.